Saransh Verma and Professor Tapas Mishra on stage, please. Thank you. Okay, so I'll introduce the moderator first. So, as a head of FinSat India Center, Satish is responsible for the internationalization of the product and support financed rapid growth phase, especially for the Tier 1 segment. He is the leader with over 3 decades of experience in building and launching enterprise-scale banking products and platforms for global market. Satish has profound understanding of digital transformation, real-time core products, omni-channel banking, open banking, and related ecosystems, retail payments, data-driven decision platforms, hyper-personalization, digital lending, and core banking. Can I have a round of applause for Satish and Mohan, please? Thank you. Krishma is a visionary thought leader with a rich experience in the field of data, artificial intelligence, and business analytics. Performed diverse roles like heading data strategy, business analytics, intelligent automations, leading teams for data sciences and business intelligence. Currently heading digital for asset management business of HSBC with responsibility to strategize and deliver business and technology chain. Past know-how include research experience with IBM Watson Labs, frontline experience as a pre-sale consultant with analytics and natural language practices, heading data strategy and business intelligence, etc. Filed 4 patents in AI/NLP space, was awarded Best of IBM. On personal front, she loves driving and reading books and is a proud mother of 12 years old boy. So can I have a round of applause for Krishma Singla? So Prateek Agarwal is an accomplished entrepreneur, startup advisor, an early stage investor with a proven track records of success, with his extensive experience in building organization at scale, including at Bajaj Finserv, Fullerton, Indostar Capital, and FT Cash. Prateek has become a sought-after operator VC in the startup ecosystem. As a former chief business officer at BharatPe and alumnus of IIM Kozhikode, Prateek brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to his role as operator investor. He is passionate about helping entrepreneurs building success and scalable business, providing them with business advisory services, access to his network, and capital raise support. Prateek has invested in over more than 35 companies and serves as an advisor to numerous startups. So if you're looking at funding, this is the guy you have to actually catch, right? So can I have a huge round of applause for Prateek? So Prateek and I have been friends for a long time. The only thing why I don't leave the friendship, because every time I need money, I can go back to him, right? Okay, so Saransh Verma, with over a decade of digital payment industry experience, Saransh has been at the forefront of making TerraPay a data-driven and customer-obsessed organization. As Vice President Analytics and Customer Success Management, he is responsible for building TerraPay analytics capabilities which enables smarter decision making across the border and empowering the organization's growth. Under his leadership, TerraPay was awarded the Best Use of Data Award at the Banking Tech Awards 2022 held at London, UK. Can I have a huge round of applause for Satish? He holds a Bachelor of Degree in Electronics, I'm sorry I missed that, Electronics and Telecommunication from the University of Pune. I would like to introduce Professor Tapas Mishra. Tapas is a professor of financial economics and head of banking and finance at Southampton Business School. Before joining academia, Tapas has served as a scientist within the World Population Program at the International Institute of Applied System Analysis in Luxembourg, Austria. He was a senior researcher at the Institute of Future Studies, Stockholm, Sweden, and senior research officer at the Institute of Economic Growth, New Delhi, India. Can I have a huge round of applause for him? I'd like to pass it on to Satish now to take the discussion ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhishek. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's not, as Abhishek said, it's not going to be easy to kind of attend a panel discussion post-lunch, but we'll try and we have some really good eminent speakers here like you all got introduced to. So I'm sure we'll try and make it very interesting for all of you. Banking as an industry has been for a very long time. It's one of the oldest industry, banking and financial services. And they've been adopting technologies to run their business better. And fintech is nothing but technologies which will empower or enable banks to do their business better. So that's fintech. Now, apart from adopting the various different technologies to kind of improve whatever they want to focus on, be it lower cost economics or improving operational efficiency or driving customer experience, AI is one element that's been on the verge of usage for many, many years within banking and financial services. With that pretext, let me go on to Professor Tapas Mishra. Professor, good afternoon. And you've been focusing specifically on banking and financial services from University of Southampton. The question that I wanted to ask you was there's so much of research and work that happens from university and academia. How much of those that has happened in the past few years have you seen them being adopted in the industry? And and probably the follow-up to that would be, what are the current research that you're doing that you think will impact the industry? We'll like to hear your perspective on that.
Thank you very much, Satish. And good afternoon, everybody. And it's really an honor to be here. Well, I'm literally sandwiched between all these practitioners. I'm an academic. And I think I have a natural bad reputation being somebody who only works on research papers and theories, develop algorithm, etc. But in any case, humor apart, I would like to ask you something before I answer Satish's question. What humans are normally afraid of? Okay, this question was asked by Alexander the Great centuries ago to an Indian saint. Whenever he used to visit India, and then he had a very big fascination for Indian saints. And in fact, one of his greatest gurus before his death was an Indian saint. Okay, you might know about it. So he had specifically designed 10 questions for the Indian saint to test his depth of knowledge. So the first question he asked, what people are really afraid of? So it is actually he said, it is the fear of the unknown. Okay, that is the biggest fear we all have. And it is possibly because of this reason we are sitting here, that we want to understand a kind of technology and its interrelationship with some kind of sectors, business, fintech, etc., right? So you want to understand through the intense interaction of the knowledge. Also, likewise, the unknown or the uncertainty, what we call in technical term, that is something defining the way we live. We lived in the past, and the way we are living now, and we are trying to redefine our future, right? Now see, this uncertainty also is deeply embedded within our expectations. How do we really expect to live? Think about 15, 20 years ago, I asked my mom the question that you have some money, why don't you take it to the bank and keep it there? Well, I don't know, I'm not very sure of it. This is because the banks are, somebody is handling that money, and I have no reason that why I should trust somebody. So I can keep the money under my bed. I can hold it, right? So her expectations of security, the ways she wanted to see life 10, 15 years, 20, 30 years ago, is a bit different, certainly different from the way we live in, right? So the expectations drive uncertainty. So accordingly, due to this dynamics of expectations, the uncertainty itself also evolves, which means the way we want to encounter or counter uncertainty is to develop new technologies or new mechanisms, new science to understand them, right? So what we try to do, Of course, they are the practitioners. So in an academic institutions like Southampton Business School, of course, I have a bit of industry experience as I was introduced very nicely by yourself, sir. I did work as a scientist at one of the UN organizations, International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis and Swedish Research Council, European Commission, etc. But then my core idea was to develop methods because somehow I realized that unless we develop the right mechanism, right approach, we cannot give the right answer. Okay? So, can I give you one small example, if you like? Because I'm sure there are some experts are here, and my esteemed colleagues are sitting here, they're smiling at me, what Tapas is up to now. Right, so let's say I do a kind of survey of about, say, 10 people sitting in this room that an effective leadership gives rise to, say, very nice growth, or improved growth in an institution. I do a survey with only 10 people. So I got some answers, some yes, no, it's a kind of qualitative data, like we do in the market survey, customer satisfaction, etc. Then I get some answers. Then I broaden the sample, enlarge the sample, 10 to 20, 20 to 200, 200 to 2,000, 2 million, etc. So then the thing is that do I need to expect exactly the same answer? Because implicitly I'm assuming yes, because there are certain implicit theories which says that yes, nice governance, nice administration, inclusive administration delivers good growth. That we know. So keeping that expectations in mind, we try to design a mechanism. And to understand this, we analyze the data. So there are certain mechanisms which are only useful only for 10 samples. Some mechanisms are useful for 2,000. Whenever you approach 2 million, 2 billion data point, things are completely different. So we have to adapt to the technology, right? So what I have seen, that methods are extremely important because this is where I was telling my friends that I work under the hood. I am a kind of background musician, okay? But they are the real heroes. They know, they have been experienced. But it's a kind of a nice industry-academia partnership. We co-evolve together. For the past 10, 15 years, what I have seen, there is a very big transition from the way we see fintech. Fintech is a kind of, do you understand what is fintech, right? Whoever, okay, can you please raise your hand? Anybody can tell me what is fintech basically? Because sometimes I have to now answer Satish's questions about the evolution for the past 10 years or so. But what do you really understand by fintech? From a traditional banking to a fintech, what do you really understand, my friends? Any thoughts? Yes, please. Sorry? That's good, yes. So what we have been trying to do here, that from traditional banking, due to the disruptive technologies, so the introduction of the disruptive technologies are transforming the traditional banking into fintech. And where you have the volume of data coming left, right, and center in time and space, and that is making the modeling challenges very, very difficult, very complex. And this is when what I see in the last 10 years or so, there has been a rapid development thanks to the integration of the way I can see the development of the new age technologies is that we were growing 10 years ago parallelly. There was certain top level research in academia going somewhere, top level industry-based research. But the last 10 years, there is an effective marriage between the two. So this is what I have seen, that the last 10 years, this is what we have done. So we are intensely collaborating. So in the fintech that you say, the introduction of the disruptive technologies, so I can see that if you look at the different aspects of the fintech, you will realize that there is an improved customer experience. And the way you would like to see the fraudulent activities being minimized. Of course, there are a lot of barriers are there. one of the examples I can give you probably when we come back to our friends later on, is that I came to UK about in 2008. Then I tried to apply for a credit card
So,
to one
Prof,
center.
can I just
Yeah.
interject? I think, just to kind of bring the flow to the context of
Yes.
this discussion. So I think you gave the kind of work that academia and research is doing and trying to bring the
Yes.
relevance of what's happening in the industry. In the last 10 years, you've seen that convergence is also happening.
Yes.
So probably I thought it will be a
Yeah,
good
please,
time
let
to
them.
kind of ask Krishma, who's from the industry herself, like so much is happening around from the industry perspective. Like, let's understand what really is happening within a bank and what, she coming from the bank, let's understand what's actually being adopted, what are the kind of things and technology and changes that they are seeing that's being incorporated to kind of better serve the customer.
Thank you. So, fintech in bank is not new. I think the BFSI sector has been the pioneer in leading the fintech in India and outside. If my numbers go right, we are looking at 6,000 plus fintechs today across the board. And about half of them are focused around BFSI. Maybe, one third, another one third on pharma, rest comes. I don't know why it is, because maybe banks have more money to invest, but the other angle to that, what I see when I see it from inside, as you rightly mentioned, I'm part of the banking industry for some time. So we see banking sector is a very complex setup, and their core operations is not technology. However, they are really, really dependent on technology, but that's not what they are focused on. So if I take my current role, investment banking, we have to deal with thousands and thousands of documents and data points to come to a conclusion which probably would be, okay, what is going to be my next fund, my next product to the market. This involves probably a study and research of 6 months or 8 months today. So what technology or fintechs are bringing, they are shortening that time. They are kind of doing all the reading of the documents, creating the summary of certain particular important points, mapping it to taxonomy related to investment banking. Now the guys who are literally really, really paid high, if you are asking them to read those documents and come up with that, then you are wasting their time, energy, and company's money. If you are able to reduce that 6 to 8 months period to 3 months, say for example, huge gain, right? So similarly in pharma industry also it's the same thing. I mean, you would have heard about clinical trials where, AI and different technologies are playing a role. So I probably will get into use cases when we start discussing about that, but in nutshell, the technology is letting the banking people do empirical things where the obvious has been left to machines and reducing the effort greatly. Yeah.
Thanks, Krishma. So, one of the biggest challenge for most large corporates, including in this context banking, is that the quantum of data that we're dealing with and the data maturity of these organizations are not to that scale. And that's a fundamental problem. Without data, you can't learn. Without learning, you can't build intelligence, right? So while we all know fintech is also kind of disrupting on certain aspects of financial services, and what's expected as of today, in at least US as a market, they do about $5 billion worth of business, which they've slowly started carving out of the banking industry, and that's expected to hit 25 billion by 2030, right? So we have here Saransh Verma, right, from a fintech, and his company TerraPay has been working on international money movement. Now, something that normally people would be going to a bank to do it, now fintech is disrupting that part of it. Now, Saransh, your company operates in multiple geographies, right? So what I would like you to share with this audience is that, how do you think the central government and regulations are critical in setting up the infrastructure, like for example in UPI in India? How important is that for, for fintechs to come in and start disrupting it? And secondly, when you disrupt, you still need a bank at the background, right? You need to partner with them. So how are banks embracing or collaborating with you? Do they see you as a competition, or do they see you as somebody who could help drive the growth?
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll answer the second part first, which is in money movement, whether it's domestic or cross-border, the participation of banks is inevitable. So actual settlements will happen through banks, and that is how the structure is. What fintechs do, like the likes of TerraPay and several others, depending on the use cases and business models that we have, is we build on speed, convenience, cost, etc. So for instance, what TerraPay has enabled is real-time cross-border payments, irrespective of value of transactions across 125 countries, to mobile wallets and bank accounts and cards right now. Which, as our colleague here said, that it's not necessarily, for instance, for Krishma to solve for that, right? She has other use cases which are core to the bank. But this helps the bank as well as actual consumers, money transfer operators, wallet operators, etc., to actually go to you and offer a value proposition to the consumers. So banks have realized that, yes, they can't do everything. They are good, and they're irreplaceable as of now. And we've realized, and fintechs have realized, that there's a lot more opportunity to do around things and complement the bank, so work with them. So we partner with a whole host of, more than 150 plus banks across the globe. That being said, when we come to regulations or regulatory constraints, so obviously financial services is one of the most regulated industries. And I'll talk about some 2-3 particular regulators. So to start with the Indian regulator, the government, for instance, in AI, so there are no specific regulations in AI as of now in India, but the government has the India AI program under Ministry of Electronics and IT. And they also are part of the Global Partnership for AI. So they'll be organizing a summit from 12 to 14 December in Delhi, which has a lot of regulators coming in and deciding how the frameworks should work on AI, not just in fintech overall. Now, the RBI, which regulates the financial services space, is unlike several other regulators, they don't lag behind in innovation. You've seen how UPI is now the largest digital payments ecosystem in the world. We do more digital payments than the US and China combined. It's absolutely massive when you go out and you find that you cannot do a real-time payment with your phone in a place which comes under developed countries. It's slightly surprising for you because you're so used to it. So what regulators have done, so the RBI, for instance, to get fintech and AI, they have got, in this August, they got Accenture and McKinsey to work with them to figure out how they can better use analytics and machine learning in their own regulations and compliance on fintechs and other financial services which they regulate. All right. Then they also have, just now you might have heard, that they are launching conversational UPI payments. Right? So that's a regulator-driven push on doing something which is core to AI. Conversational payments are core to AI. So that is how the current regulator in India, we work with a regulator which is in India, which is very proactive, but it's strict as well. That's what RBI is doing. So they are very open to you trying, within controlled environments, innovations, testing those risks and managing those. The second regulator I would like to talk about, which is aiming to be the foremost regulator in AI, in fintech, is the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. And we work with them a lot because one of TerraPay's core operating entities is the UK regulated entity. And what the FCA does, they have released a paper in July, and they said that there are 3 primary parameters which they want to regulate. So very few countries have regulations. Even for instance, in the US, the Federal Trade Commission, which regulates fintechs, it doesn't have a law per se. They have some guidelines. So the FCA in UK said that there'll be 3 things they'll be doing, or they have actually started doing. They've released a sandbox for fintechs to start testing their innovations in AI, ML, various in controlled environments so that the risks can be managed which go to consumers, because for them, consumer protection and stability of the ecosystem is foremost. The second thing that they said is they have mandated what they call third-party critical systems regulation. So for instance, the clouds where a lot of these systems are hosted, data is hosted, they are expanding their regulatory regime around that. So, and the third thing that they said is that senior managers supervisory regime is what they call it. So what they are placing accountability, which was slightly ambiguous. They're placing accountability directly on senior managers of those institutions which they are regulating. So from a regulatory perspective, a lot of regulators are now becoming more and more closer to innovation rather than lagging behind. And they're themselves asking the likes of fintechs like us to come and innovate and figure out what we can offer in controlled environment first, and then they will regulate us.
Thanks, Varansh. So I think we got a lot of good insights on it. What's really happening is while fintech by general cannot come and start solving those friction points which we see in financial services or any business for that matter, startups cannot come and solve for those frictions that the consumer face, but it's about how the regulatory and other authorities kind of enable those things to happen. And that's very important, right? How do you set that kind of environment? And the whole aspect of open banking, open finance, open economy that we are familiar with is kind of built on these ground rule principle, right? So how the central authorities are actually, like the FCA or FSA in the UK is the one which actually came up with the first open banking bill, right? Now talking about startups, fintech, there's Prateek here with us, and I think what I want to take on the floor with him is that now so much is happening in fintech and startup. We see a lot of fintechs with .ai as a company, URL or websites, So you as an investor, I'm sure you read the market more diligently because you want to know, like a CFO, the money I put in has the, is secure, it's risk averse, there is a potential for me to get a good return. So what are the actual trends that you've seen are being picked up? And what kind of parameters do you look at the new age companies which are adopting, which are solving for fintech and looking at AI as a differentiator?
Thanks Satish for having me. So I think, as everybody said, I'll talk more about the India context. And before becoming a VC, I was an operator building companies, right? And I see that still 95% is all done manually. All of your parents, even including you, when UPI wasn't there, you were getting all the money probably, in UPI right now, right? Or your bank account. But prior to that, back home, everybody is still going to the banks. So 95% is still very, very manual. Krishma is from a bank, right? However, HSBC still evolved because HSBC operates primarily in multiple countries. However, again, 80–90% of banks in India are still very manual. AI is a long, long shot, right? And I think in the previous presentation, you had multiple layers of AI. So I think we are still suboptimal in terms of artificial intelligence. Something I only respect is probably a ChatGPT, right? Where it really understands and trains itself, right? So from my perspective, you're just not even scratched the surface so far, right? I think in the financial ecosystem, the way we are evolving is much faster than anybody in the world. But as of date, 95% of lending, 95% probably of mutual funds or anything, any investment asset where a traditional Indian out of 130 crores, maybe 125 crores are still using the typical way of visiting a branch, signing a check, using an IMPS, or an NEFT. 90% of businesses are using it. So that is what India currently still is on. Fintech, if you see in last 5 years, right, has evolved, right, and RBI and other regulators are still taking cognizance of what fintech is, right, and how does it really affect the economy and the ecosystem. I'm not talking about the marketing angle of it, that we have done some great stuff on it, right? UPI definitely is a game changer, which everybody in the West, everybody around are catching up on. But still, if you see, right, fintech is so let's take a step back and understand how does the government think, how does the founder think, and how probably the academia thinks, and how do we think, right? So from the government perspective, it is about catering to 140 crore people, right? Out of 140 crore people, right, if you slice and dice, only 5 crore people are the ones who understand what we're talking about, which is fintech. Probably only 25 crore people would use UPI who have online bank accounts, etc., right? But India doesn't run with 5 crore people, right? So whenever the government will think, it will think about 140 crore people and will try to barricade and ring fence certain things so that 135 crore people do not get cheated, right? How many people have seen the Jamtara thing and UPI frauds and things, right? So that is the reality where if you see, all the regulations will always consider as to a common man can be a common man can use these services, yes or no, right? Really, the government will not think about the 5 crore people, and that is but obvious because they know they have certain bank account, they have a bottom line, they have bank balances, they can manage themselves, right? Then let's come to the fintech ecosystem, how it is evolved, right? With UPI, multiple companies, including my ex-company, BharatPay, right? They wouldn't have been possible if UPI wasn't there, right? What UPI did is activated every common man through a QR code, which you have the next session on, I believe, right? And anybody can transfer who understands what is a PIN number, what is a smartphone, how to transfer, whom to transfer, those 4 or 5 checkpoints. And then founders in the Indian ecosystem, right, have really believed, and as Shreyan said, right, that founders' job is to reduce the turnaround time, innovate on products, and then their consumers are either banks or their consumers are either direct to consumer, right? So that's where fintech, if you see what's helping fintech founders raise money is India kind of population is not available. That kind of money, you might not have a lot of paying customers in India, but definitely you have number of users in India, right? So, and that's the reason why once they achieve certain product market fit, and once they have users, right, they start making money probably outside India, right? And then probably, let's step back into the investment thing as to why fintech and why it is more promising for us to invest. Because the moment we think about 140 crore people, banking ecosystem is changing, customers are kind of every 3 years, the lowest level of customer is moving to the next level, right? So you could say that Indian population, maybe if again we talk about 140 crore people, right? Maybe 3 crore people every year are now upgrading themselves to a bank account. The bank account guy who has already upgraded is moving to a smarter phone. He's moving to a UPI. After UPI, he's using probably to a banking service, to a neobank, to a fintech offering, and the top tier might be using Zeptos in Bangalore's and Big Basket. So from an investment perspective, if we see, right, the fintech is really changing the way money moves, right? Again, picking up from everybody whatever they said, right? So one is that movement of money is getting smarter. The people, the users, be it enterprise users or bankers or NBFCs and others, right? This increasing day by day, right? And something what you can fund right now, right, can be really big, right? If UPI was launched probably by a fintech, I think the VC would have got 1,000% exit, right? And most of my portfolio is fintech because that's what I understand. So I think we are overall in a very right space in India. This is the best time, and you are in a graduation program where while you graduate, you will understand fintech and regulator working in tandem, which has not happened anywhere else in top 10 countries in the world, right? Here, the regulator is running as fast as fintechs are running. The venture capitalists are running as fast even to fund these fintechs. And the next layer, which probably I would expect, is the transformation of artificial intelligence, right? Which I said in the start that it is not even scratched the surface. You know, so you as young students, probably, you know, you might want to think which area do you want to really cash on to, and which train do you want to catch to, right? Do you want to be a fintech enthusiast? Do you want to be a banker who's using this? Do you want to be an AI person who probably contributes to everything, right? But the future is financial services, banking ecosystem, artificial intelligence, and reducing you know, the manpower. So all those jobs probably which your seniors would have got, right, might not be available in future. For you to be relevant in the industry, you need to give that extra thing to that system where you become relevant and you become an input for all of those, right? Because all those jobs which probably existed 5 years back will not be there 5 years later by the time you graduate. So I think that's my take, right, on the entire landscape.
Yeah. No, thanks. I think it's good to kind of hear the perspective of changing job market, the kind of roles that are changing in any business that we do today, because most of the time, I'm sure most of you would have read about, you know, when you try to build a solution or a product, it's about trying to find what the jobs to be done, and jobs to be done are being dramatically changing in every industry as we speak, right? So Pfizer, where I come from, we run in 100 countries. We've got about 10,000 banks as our customer, and we do 12,000 payments every second, right? And we are ranked #1 fintech by IDC globally as of last month. And what I've seen is that, you know, the biggest challenge in the AI world, the way the banks have been adopting, is that they are more on the descriptive and diagnostic stage of, you know, analytics, right? They are trying to see what is happening, they are trying to go and decipher what has happened and why it has happened. But to go to predictive and prescriptive, it's a way forward, like even Prateek called out, right? We are fairly early. But the good part is that if most banks have started solving that, and I'm sure in your consumer retail banking experience, you're seeing that experience, right? And to the point that Professor Tapas was making about, you know, hard currencies that were there. Now you are seeing that there is CBDC coming, there is e-money coming, there is different asset class that are coming, crypto and other aspects are coming. So, Krishma, like with multiple asset class that are being coming in, how is the fund management situation going to change, or asset management going to change for the future, and how much of AI would influence those kind of new asset class that potentially the customer have started investing on, right? So we are hearing, you know, now that, okay, I'll stop there, yeah.
Yeah, interesting point. So, yeah, I mean, because, okay, so let me say this. First of all, 5 years back, the meaning of asset classes was very traditional in nature. The end investor, with all this awareness which has come in with respect to, say, for example, sustainability, you know, alternative funds in terms of private banking, in terms of hedge funds, in terms of, you know, real estate, a lot of different kinds of you know, investment options have come out, and the customers, the end users, aren't that traditional in their thinking as well. So with all this social media and so much of information because of use of internet, people have started to ask for certain particular questions which were never asked before. So Pretty recently, we were doing some market study for behavior analytics, trying to understand the, so-called putting an investor persona in place to launch a product. And the questions which were coming out was that, all right, if you are buying this stock, have they ever, played part in the bilateral relations specifically to the countries which are being sanctioned by US? So that makes us think that, okay, we are talking about, 4 level of information here. So when those questions come to us, to me specifically, when I'm juggling with the data and I'm supposed to give out that information to these people, to the sales guys, I have to break that down into, all right, we are talking about those countries which are sanctions by US, and then we are talking about the historical events which have gone by as part of those countries, and what has been the history of this company with respect to these countries and all of that. So juggling through all of that information and coming out with an answer is like one of a challenge, which I don't think without technology we can address, because we are talking about hundreds and hundreds of data points here. So that's one part of the thing. Second part of the thing, you talked about multi-asset, right? So this is the investor part of it, where when we launch a product, what are the different things we need to consider with respect to end investor. When you talk about asset classes, alternatives has never been, a growth area for banks. We always used to think, okay, real estate means there would be some lending requirements coming in, some wealth products which you need to, position from that perspective. But now the story is very different. So even investment in terms of certain particular areas who are not having physical assets, like say for example, Airbnb or OYO, they don't have any physical assets, but they have a market cap. How do you consider those things as part of your portfolio? How do you assess risk in those things? And since you are supposed to give appropriate returns to your customer in that sense, right? You need to contain risk. So things have really, really changed. And that's where fintech companies are so instrumental, because banks have so much to worry now. They don't have time to get into data, to analytics, to wrangling and all of that. Fintechs are absolutely necessary, where we can just outsource and ask for outcomes.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this view on this, Krishma. I think I'm going to make the next question more like a rapid fire. So we know, we're talking on this topic on AI in fintech and banking. Let's kind of try and pick some of the best here to kind of see what are the kind of practical use cases that are going to be there. So I'm going to pose an area to each one of you, and whatever are the use cases that you believe are prevalent in that space is something we can look at, and probably we can also go through the audience as well. I'll start with Professor Tapas Mishra. Professor, so can you give me a couple of use cases in the operational area that financial institutions have been, using AI for?
Hello, you can hear me, right? Yeah. So one very important area where AI has been used, and it's still in the process of using elevated innovation in that area, is the financial inclusion. In fact, in 2020, the Reserve Bank of India introduced what they called the National Strategy for Inclusive Financial Inclusion. And they are soliciting really the help of the AI to deliver greater goods to the people, because any innovation or technology is helpful only when it reaches the masses at a greater speed. So they are soliciting the use of AI so that we can have a very elevated level of pattern recognition to identify which are the vulnerable groups which can be benefited from the inclusive financial technology. So this is one area which has been rapidly really progressing.
Okay. Yeah. So financial inclusion as a segment is a use case for AI, because I think probably the use case further there to look at is today in financial inclusion, we have people who are credit worthy, but they're not in the credit system. So they might have the money, but they're not in your CRISIL or any of those kind of stuff. That's an example you're talking about. I'll probably go to Saransh. Saransh, you're in the payment side. So what's the kind of AI use case that you see from a fraud perspective when money moves?
Okay, so specifically for fraud, I mean, AI is absolutely fundamental to fraud, anti-money laundering, combating financing of terrorism, system applications, and actually figuring out proper results. So we use AI massively in building AML compliance use cases, and not just this has been done for like 30 years. I mean, Visa is the world's largest payments company in terms of payments, money movement. They started using AI 30 years ago for fraud detection. This year, last month, they released, they've started a $100 million venture. And I was interacting with someone very senior there, and they said that their main focus is on incubating ideas which are related to fraud, identifying fraud, and combating fraud. So in fraud management, right from user personas cases, velocity, structuring of payments, all these things are AI dependent on systems which use AI to get results. So it's a whole industry actually within payments.
Yeah, agree. So I'll go to Prateek. I mean, Prateek is a person I always look up to when it comes to lending as a space. Of course, he's fairly well versed in multiple areas, but Prateek, from your perspective, AI as a use case for underwriting at scale and speed, what's your view?
I think for AI to be trained itself, you need certain number of years of data points as well as data points as such, right? Again, going back to the previous conversation, 95% is done manually. How many people do you have, how much data points do you have, right? You have an Aadhaar, you have a bureau report, you have a PIN code where you're staying, that's it, right? What AI will do in that, right? So for me, I think having worked in fintechs, banks, NBFCs, these were the 5 points, right? The chief risk officers typically don't even understand anything outside because they're like grown in that space for like 20 years, right? I think the industry is not ready to underwrite on artificial intelligence data because an artificial intelligence to underwrite would take probably maybe 1/50th of the amount which it actually takes, by a manual underwriter, right? And the money which is at stake. So for a 1,000 rupee application, for a 1 lakh rupee application, you won't use an AI to just fund that, right? So I think we're again in a very nascent stage. I'm not very confident on the use of AI because of lack of data in the Indian ecosystem, right? There are a lot of companies who have built based on payments, based on bank statements, based on things, but that is still, not the right time right now for putting all your bankers' money as a lender for an AI underwriting, right? On the other aspect, I think first let's at least do the basics right, which is how many people use a call center for any of your uses, right? Probably just raise a hand. How many people use call centers or physical touch points or something or bots for solving any of your customer service issues, right? Everybody, most of you, right? I think the first basic revolution or starting point of even understanding that we are AI powered or we are getting there somewhere is when you erase all the call centers by probably 80%, right? You have just 20% of man-managed call centers and customer service, right? Something which I saw at Zomato, right? Where you had to call somebody for a refund or something. Now they've built a decent one. So multiple number of orders, you just chat with them, they know your history, they know whether this is your regular practice, and they just refund it within moments, right? The same is probably with Uber and Ola and others. So I think customer service is the first thing when you start seeing bots enabled, when you start seeing no manual intervention, especially in your monetary refunds and still, I think that is the first stepping stone for the next thing. Till then, I don't see any valid use cases which can really change the world.
Satish, if I may just add to, since you asked about the fraud thing and for the audience here, there is an entire stream of fintechs called RegTech and regulatory tech, which is focused on regulatory compliance and fraud and AML. And while this is Prateek's domain primarily, I was reading a Pitch 100 report that deals in RegTech are far larger compared to average deals in fintech, because there are very few companies which do that work. It's hard work. But if you land up in a RegTech company or in a good use case being solved by a RegTech company, that's extremely viable in terms of career growth.
In fact, I'll add to that, taking the same use case, right? So one of my portfolio companies is Gupshup. It's typically a $1.4 billion last raise. And Gupshup is kind of working with multiple use cases, and we were solving one of the RegTech use cases where you have an average KYC, right? Know your customer by a bank or an NBFC or a mutual fund or an insurance policy, right? It's costing about $500, right? In RegTech, if you are able to take RBI's blessings and you are able to come up with a system where you can do your KYC over a WhatsApp or over a link, bit.ly link or something, it reduces to $20. Now, do you not think all that money, $480, which gets left out with the bank, can actually be passed on in a certain way, or your customer onboarding is really less? If your customer onboarding is really less, right, you can increase your ticket size, because why do you think 2.5 lakhs or 3 lakhs or 5 lakhs is the minimum amount which a banker funds, especially banks and NBFCs, which are directly working with the central bank, right? Because your customer onboarding cost is 2,000 to 5,000 rupees, right? It doesn't justify the cost for a micro loan, right? So that's the reason why RegTech is taking precedence in funding as well.
So I think while the underwriting aspect as a case in point, from a customer user experience standpoint, it brings a lot of anxiety for anybody who's applying a loan or a loan product, because they don't know how much and when it's getting funded by the institution that they're applying to. And in a way, solving for that would help them reduce the anxiety, and that kind of leads to, though it's kind of an underwriting operational improvement area from a bank's operation standpoint, but I think it's kind of connected to customer experience. On that note, Karishma, what do you think are some of the use cases that could be very prominent from a customer experience standpoint using AI? And I believe there are a few, but maybe I would like to hear your perspective.
Right, so I think that is, as Prateek mentioned, that is probably the most softest area where AI has been making a lot of change. So one is digital channels. Earlier, banking started with that typical brick and mortar setup, right? But now if you look at banks, it has completely transformed. Everybody is talking through either the mobiles or the websites or chatbots and the channels. And the interesting part is that every bank has a separate section now which is focused only on multimodal customer touch point. So that shows the importance out there. Other things are that, like the one which I'm seeing in investment banking now, when a relationship manager is going to meet the client, there is a lot of homework which needs to be done. So some of these, AI capabilities which are coming in form of advisors to relationship managers, that is also very handy and helping to establish that personalized environment with customers, making that easier. Third thing which is coming up in customer touchpoint is when you say that you have done so much of research and this is what you can offer, when you can demonstrate that to customer, you are able to build that trust much more nicely as compared to earlier times where it's your word against them, right? So I think these three areas are kind of working out very well in my industry.
So I think we got a sense of a few use cases, but there are quite a bit that, crunching data and using intelligence to kind of better reduce, operational inefficiency which are there within banks, and also driving cost, like the way Pratik pointed out, was the whole cost of customer acquisition is so high that there is an opportunity. The moment you shrink it, there is a potential to take a revenue out of it. And I think now it's that point in time, we'll try and see kind of what are the challenges that this brings into the industry on the whole, right? So probably this will be the last question that I want to put through the panel before we open up for questions. So I would like to probably start with, Krishma saying, Krishma, what do you think are some of the challenges that this brings about in terms of data privacy, probably, and then in terms of regulation compliance, and more importantly, because this being financial service which are at the end of it addressing people needs for their financial products, how much of responsible AI is being done so that there is no bias which goes into it? So how do I ensure I do not introduce bias into some of the algorithms that we write? So what are your views? And I would like to kind of take it through the panel to kind of get everybody's perspective.
Yeah, interesting piece. So financial markets being regulatory, very heavy towards the regulatory side, lots and lots of restrictions. Anything and everything which you use from AI, or if I may say so, we use AI at the back end, we don't tell regulators we are using it. So that's where augmentation comes into picture. We do all the base work with AI, and then the face is a human. And so, it's not judged that way. That's one part. Then second thing around, you mentioned privacy. So with every country or every region coming up with their own privacy rules, now India is coming up with their own act, which probably would be valid in a couple of weeks or a month's time. So when you are not sharing data within countries, it becomes so hard to implement AI. I mean, how do you, ample amount of data is needed to establish patterns. And if you are only looking at India data, you won't be able to standardize. If you're only looking at European data, you're not able to standardize. So how do you create global products? It's going to be quite a challenging situation. Need to work around it, but yeah, I mean, privacy is pretty hard to deal with at the moment.
Do you want to repeat that question again for me?
Yeah, sure. This was more on the challenges that AI brings in to fintech in per se, and things around data privacy for customers, or in terms of compliance.
I think AI less for me. It's not a challenge. It's the infrastructure which is not available, right? And we're just scratching. We're just starting up. So I think the challenges would be only to get started. First, accumulate, as Krishma also said, right? We're just not there. Once we are there, then we will really understand. Maybe the regulator, the people, everybody's trying to firefight too fast, too early, before we have actually seen it, right? I mean, we are at a position where still we are showing Aadhars, still we are giving Aadhar copies at the hotel check-ins, right? And we talk about privacy, right? The guy who opens your boot at the hotel lobby or the entrance doesn't know why. So I think privacy is still overrated so far in the practical purposes. That's my take.
Okay. That's interesting. Saransh?
So I'll talk about AI and from some of the work that we do in terms of AI and cross-border payments and payments in general, right? The 4 particular things that are of concern. And AI is general purpose technology. It's like the internet. It's like, or going before that, electricity or internal combustion engines, right? It cannot be regulated, cannot be controlled as like, through a generic framework, etc. So it depends on the use cases of how it is used to be controlled that way. Okay. So in the payments domain, transparency, accountability, privacy and security is what the frameworks usually are. And I agree. I mean, privacy, I'll go to the extent of saying that privacy is a myth. Okay, it's what happens is how the data that's there is used responsibly by those entities which have the data is what matters, and there you have to build guardrails. Okay, so in payments and AI, what you have is what is called the black box problem. So the algorithms, the decision-making structures have become so complex that it's difficult to understand them. You have an input, you have outputs, you have several sets of inputs, you get some outputs, and then you decide on how the system will behave, right? It's like, just like you use internet, you don't know what, most of us might not be, aware of how TCP IP works, for instance. But that's the core of how it works, right? But we build on top of that. So what you do is you build on how your system is behaving, be transparent about it, right? You work in a controlled environment, have accountability, which is very important. Just like as I said, the regulators are now coming at specific levels and saying that these level of individuals, officers are responsible for what happens when their systems are used. And building guardrails around data that we use. So even when we work with third parties or when we work with our cloud providers, all of them, when they use payments, you have PCI DSS certifications, you have a whole host of guardrails around how that data is managed. So that's on the privacy part. Now coming to bias, see, it's again, to say that there will be no bias is again like something chasing very elusive. There has always been bias, whether it's human decisions, whether it's AI decisions, and AI is not something new. When we write rule-based things, that is also AI. What has happened recently is generative AI has come in the picture very prominently, and that machine learning aspect of AI, the generative AI part, is what is causing a lot of these discussions around, right? So there is bias in the type of data that you use to train the machine. How to train, to control that or to take into account how it works is how you define the use case and how you control the use case. So if a use case is for hiring at a certain level in a certain geography, you cannot train the system based on hiring from a different geography. Or if it's for payment systems in India, it cannot be trained on wallet interactions that happen in M-Pesa in Kenya or Gcash in Philippines, for instance. So you need to train your models based on what the use case is and what the audience is to minimize the unrequired bias.
Yeah, I think, while I think the important point that comes out of Saran's viewpoint is that how as corporates or organization you bring the guardrails, how do you bring governance? Because it's up to you to kind of define that boundary conditions for how you want to define your system, and that's very critical. Let's hear from Professor Tapas Mishra.
Thank you very much. I can identify a number of challenges actually. Point is every technology comes with a lot of challenges, integrational, interpretational, so a lot of challenges, and you rightly identified about the quality of the data. The first one I would like to identify is the way we interpret the data. So we use natural language processing sometimes to understand people's emotions or interpret the right data in the right format. One humorous example I can give you if you allow me. So one North Indian friend went to a South Indian house for dinner, okay? And I think most of you would know this. And so especially in Indian tradition, if somebody comes to your house as a guest, you say, okay, please eat, don't hesitate, please eat. Right? That's what I was trying to tell my esteemed colleague, Professor Laura Costanzo. She has come from UK. So as an Indian, so I was trying to say, oh, please don't hesitate, eat this, eat that one, right? So in Hindi, so that's okay. So just don't be ashamed, khaiye, this was saram kana nahi, something like that. But the South Indian family, they did not know how to speak Hindi. So instead, so they were trying to communicate, khaiye khaiye sharam to hai hi nahi. So basically, this is the thing. That means, instead of saying you should not be ashamed of, you should not be shy of. So it says, but intention is good. that sharam to hai nahi, so you are a shame, you are a shameless person. Just eat, but you are like eating like a shameless person. So same thing, it happens in interpreting data. So in English, sometimes we can communicate the word is multiple emotions with a single word. Or we can do the reverse. But how we really translate the same thing in technical language, that we have a problem with NLP. So that is when we need to really, just as we are discussing in the morning about democratizing the GPT-1 in different languages, to understand different types of emotions of the people. What do they want? So we need to see AI, not just what we really expect from AI, not that what AI can do for you, right? So that is what we should do. So this is one of the challenges. So integrational, as you already mentioned about, ethical aspects, etc. And but one important aspect I think is also important, that especially in case of fintech, is that new startups, fintech startups come very regularly. If you look at the in a monthly basis, so many new ventures coming. Even after we do this talk, probably in next couple of months, you will find some fintech startups from here. But the challenges faced by the government or the institution, how to protect the new ones. And because there can be kind of predatory behavior from the established, or because they have the competitive advantage in the market when they are floating their own fintech products. So this is one, again, from the institutional side, that can be another challenge. So that is probably some other aspects, of course, you all have covered. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor. So I think, Abhishek, I know we are slightly over time, but probably if you would want to open the floor for any questions, I think we can take some few questions.
Okay, so we will take 2 questions because we are running short of time. Can I have the mic given to the gentleman there? Yeah, we'll take 1 question and then we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Yeah.
Sir, in terms of return, you said VCs are more interested in investing fintech companies, but we know many of the startups are not profitable, such as PhonePe and BharatPe. Then why VCs are interested in investing in these companies? Or the next question would be how AI would help these companies to be profitable?
See, profitability, and this is like a very common question every time, right? This is the favorite question of the media also and everybody. So it's like profitability. But see, please understand that in a high growth market, right, and a magnet like India, right, you either build a profitable business in 10 years, right, and you support only a handful dozen of employees, right, which is typically called Lala, right, which community I belong to, Agarwals, right. You build a profitable business, you are happy doing that, right, and most of your parents and back home, you would have seen it, right. What we invest in profitability is, which can be achieved anytime, right. What we invest in a market share, right, what we invest in that, can I invest in this idea earlier, which can really significantly take a market share in coming times, right? So think about a very layman example which I use is like, don't focus on the toll of a highway, right? Build a highway, let people use it, right? Once they start using the highway, you can anytime put a toll and make it profitable and start charging for it and things, right? So growth versus profitability is the key which at least I look at, right? I'm okay to give up profitability for some time if I'm seeing a growth, right? And if I'm not seeing a growth, then I might have save capital and tell him to be profitable. Most of the startups are in a range where if we stop the growth, they will be profitable in 2-3 months time, right? And they will be happily building, but will they create jobs? Will they be able to expand to like, all over India? No, they will be only operating out of Bangalore or Maharashtra or some 2-3 states, and they will keep doing profitability. How much will I get out of it? Right? And the second question is AI, right? So again, AI, basis of AI is what? It's a very abused word, just like fintech and multiple other things, right? So I think we are just getting started. Let us first organize the data. Let us first identify the use cases. Let us first do some basic stuff which AI can manage, right? Let people give away their, some bit of at least the customer service, right? But people don't want to give that also, right? For a 100 rupee refund, they want to have an agent which is costing 25,000 rupees. Do you even understand that every call center, why I'm saying this call center thing is because that's something which is easily replaceable, right? Where every call you make or they attend is costing 25 rupees. And what are you haggling as a customer is probably a 50 rupees. Does it even make business sense, right? For entrepreneurs, for founders, for people who are running businesses, right? Have they even gone into it in detail and checked it out? So we invest in ideas, we invest in something which can change, right? The way we behave, right? If somebody wouldn't have invested in Paytm, somebody wouldn't have invested in Zomato, we would be still thinking about where to order, what to order, and when will we get it, right? There is somebody who's taken that bet, and that's where the behaviors are changed now, right? Now nobody goes to a supermarket, they just Zepto it, right? So I think that's the way to look at from our perspective.
All right, so we'll go with the last question. Can you pass the mic?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Ishanshu Bajpai. I have a question from you. We recently saw the collapse of SVB, Signature Bank, Credit Suisse. How do you look at it from Indian perspective? Like, what is going on wrong in the America that is not happening in India, and how our country can learn from it? And what's your point of view on that?
Krishma, would you like to take it?
There's nothing wrong with these banks. Only thing is that, at times you would have heard the same thing about in 2008, right? When the market fell. You would have heard the same thing about some of these banks in India also, where RBI strengthened their regulations to kind of, create the whole to be lesser. You should be doing more stringent KYCs to understand where your money is going, and you should be having, ample collaterals so that if the money is being lent to somebody, that can be retrieved to the bank. So what was happening in these banks is probably the point which Prateek was putting, right? In terms of growing, in terms of expansion, they were sort of, taking these regulations or these things much easier. At some point of time when you are doing SVB, specifically in SVB case, they were not diversifying too much. They were actually putting in a lot of money in one basket, all of the eggs. So then when that basket goes down, with that the bank also goes down. So in a way, it's most about how your internal risks within the bank are managed and how stringent you are with respect to regulators. So what we can learn here is India is quite savvy in terms of regulatory risk. I feel so. HSBC is an European bank who are even more stringent in terms of regulations. But I feel India is more balanced from a regulatory standpoint. So I don't think we are in the same boat as some of these banks are. But yeah, caution would be necessary because we are dealing with so much of money and India is growing exponentially now. So yeah, something to be watchful for.
So in a nutshell, our money is in safe hands. So we'll like to conclude that session. Can I have a round of applause for all the panelists? Thank you. I would like to call Professor Srifan on stage to felicitate the speakers. Thank you. All right, so we were supposed to break for a high tea. I'm sorry to disappoint you. That we can start with the dialogue. Yeah, I know you guys are disappointed, but yeah, I can't help it, right? Can I have some the back row come here? Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. May I request everyone to please take your seat. I'm happy to introduce Sudhanshu Jha, Vishal Sinha, and Vishwanath JK. May I request them to come on stage, please? Please take your seat.
I think they needed the tea.
Okay, so quickly let me start by introducing Sudhanshu Jha. He is the Vice President Digital Payment Products at Hitachi Payment Services. He is heading the products there. He is leading product design development and payments business. He has rich experience working in payment, e-commerce, travel industries, and has held leadership roles at Pine Labs, Innovative Payments, Cox & Kings, Worldline. Now, next we have Vishal Sinha, who is in the center. He is VP Technology at Paytm. He is currently working as VP Technology there. He has 20 plus years work experience playing leadership roles in technology space. He is an alumnus of IIT and IIM Bangalore. And then further to my left, we have Vishwanath. Vishwanath is an engineering graduate from Bengaluru Institute of Technology. And he is also a TAPME alumnus with specialization in finance and marketing at TAPME. JK, as he is called, has 30 plus years experience and expertise in banking and NBFC sectors. He has held leadership roles at Aisha, Citibank, and at DCB Bank. He now heads corporate banking at DCB Bank. So they're going to be speaking on the subject of UPI Lite. How much of a game changer is UPI Lite, and what are its functionalities, and how is it going to enable commerce? How is it going to enable customers? You can take it away from now.
Yes. Hello. Hey, folks. Hi. So I must say that Sudhanshu is the one who has a flight at 7, and he is stopping you all from the high tea. So all your hard questions should be directed to him.
I'm sorry, guys.
Hello, can you? Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I have flight to Mumbai at 7. So, because of that, you could not go for the high tea. I'm really sorry for that.
So we now have the presentation on display. You can
The way we will structure this discussion is first we will have a presentation. You will hear it from one of the pioneers and from Paytm, so you will really get to know what is a payments and where does UPI come into play. You're all graduates, coming to be budding graduates, and the best way is that when you look at UPI and payments, you would all agree on one thing, that it is a smart way to make payments, right? People agree? People agree or not? At least you should answer. I'll know, otherwise the tea has no effect. Yeah? So it's a smart way to make payment. And being smart is a way of life. I don't know how many of you have heard of a story, and I will tell you a small story. Okay? Because it makes things easier, and people who want to sleep will at least wake up, correct? Instead of listening to a story. Okay, there was a very rich man in a village, and he had lent all his money. And since we're talking about payments, he had lent all his money, some part of his money, to a very poor guy. The poor guy, naturally, like in all Hindi movies, couldn't pay the money. But like in all Hindi movies, the poor guy had a beautiful daughter, right? So the rich guy said, since you're not able to pay the money, I will marry your daughter. But the daughter is the hero of the movie, right? She can't lose. She will only marry the hero, not the villain. So she said, okay, let me think. I'll agree to marry this guy, but on one condition, that he passes a test. I want to give him a test to find if he's really smart. Okay? And the test was very simple. So where they were standing, there were a lot of pebbles on the ground, and it had black and white pebbles, right? There were a lot of black and white pebbles on the ground. So the daughter said, I will pick up 2 pebbles, one of each color. And what did she say? She said, one of each color, okay? And one is black, I'll have white in one hand. And if the person who wants to marry me chooses the hand with the white pebble, I will marry him. Okay? She said, if she chooses the hand with the white pebble, I will marry him. So the other guy agreed, and he said, now I will pick the pebble. And what he did, the rich guy, he picked up both the black pebbles. Okay? So since he picked up both the black pebbles, and whatever this girl chooses, he picked up both the white pebbles, and whatever this girl chooses, in whichever hand, it will be a white pebble. Right? So she said, hold on 1 minute, I will pick the pebbles. So she picked it up, and she did a very smart thing. What had to be in the hand? If the white pebble is picked up, she has to marry him. Correct? And there were 2 pebbles, right? One is black, one is white. So what did she do? She dropped which pebble? She dropped the white pebble by accident. And she said, I'm so sorry. And they couldn't place the pebble because everything was black and white. They didn't know which pebble fell down. And she also said, I didn't see which pebble fell down. So you open the other hand. Whatever is not in that hand is the pebble which I have chosen. So that will be the result. The hand was opened. It was not a white pebble. So she did not marry him. And the loan was written off. So this is a story to tell you there are smart ways to do business. There are smart ways in which you can do things in life. There are smart ways in which everything will change, because smarter, quicker is the way in which things move, and so in payments as well. Okay? If you ask your father how he sent money to his father, he would tell you, I sent money through a money order, and many of you wouldn't even know of this. There would be a postman who would bring the money home and give it. It will take 4 days to reach between 2 cities. Today it takes less than 4 seconds, thanks to people like Vishal, Sudhanshu who are there, and thanks to banks which intermediate. That's the story we're going to talk about of UPI Lite. It is a game changer in payments. It's a very interesting topic. It's an area which I think will be the future. It is already the future. And over to Vishal.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Viswa. So let's get started. So the way we decided to do this discussion is, we'll first set the context, why UPI Lite is needed, quickly how UPI works, what was the problem, and what is the problem UPI Lite is solving. And then we'll talk about various features of UPI Lite, pros and cons. And then we'll also touch base on, is it really a game changer or not? So let's get started, with UPI. So, all right. So this here I have put some data here, which is as recent as last month. The number of UPI transactions done per month is 10 billion. This is as per NPCI report for September. There's a PwC report also which says that, by 2027, the number of transactions done on UPI will be 1 billion per day, which is like 30 billion a month. And interestingly, 85% of these transactions are less than 2,000 rupees. For P2M, which is person to merchant, it is 94.3%, which means 94.3% of the transactions, the amount when you scan the QR code and make the payment to a merchant, that is less than 2,000. And for P2P, which is person to person, it is 76.52%. So that's where UPI Lite comes into picture. We'll discuss about it further. Also, for the UPI, the transaction rate, the success rate is 95%. And the 5% failure is due to business failures as well as the technical declines. So for business failures, what it means is the user entering the wrong PIN, or the user does not have fund in its account, or there is a risk reject. The merchant is not eligible to get the payment. And the technical declines is when there is some system which is not working. Maybe the bank is down, NPCI is down, one of the system, because of technical reasons, right? The reason I'm presenting all this data is because at some point, at some place, UPI Lite is solving some of these problems, not all of it. We'll discuss it. But so before we move on to UPI Lite, I just wanted to present how does the UPI work. That's my next slide. All right. So on your left hand side is where the user basically scans the QR code or enters the VPA, and then the request goes to. Basically it happens in two phases. Phase one is when your VPA or your VPA is basically virtual payment address. That is something like your number @Paytm. That's your VPA. So in phase one, what happens is when you enter that VPA on the app, a verification happens whether this VPA is a valid one or not. And how does it happen? From the user, it goes to the payer PSP. Payer PSP example can be Paytm. From there, the request goes to NPCI, wherein it gets validated. Okay, this is the one where the amount needs to be transferred. That's where you see the name also of the user, of the person whom you are transferring the fund. NPCI connects with the remitter bank. Remitter bank is your bank, who is the person who is paying the money. And NPCI also connects with the beneficiary bank, is the person where the money is to be deposited. And then there's a payee PSP on the other side, wherein NPCI forwards the request to validate it. So when you transfer the money, the request flows from user to payer PSP to NPCI, and NPCI to payee PSP, beneficiary bank. NPCI to payee PSP only for validating the request and for transferring the amount to the beneficiary bank. And for debiting the amount, it goes to the remitter bank. So if you see in this whole flow, if any of the party is down, whether NPCI is down, payer PSP is down, the beneficiary bank is down, or the remitter bank is down, the transaction won't happen. And this is one of the highest factor which is contributing to the technical declines, which I mentioned in the last slide, which is like around 1 to 1.5%. 0.5 to 1.5%. What UPI Lite brings into picture is it removes the problem with the remitter bank. Because in that case, your amount is in a wallet, which is an on-device wallet called UPI. Right? We'll see that in subsequent slides.
So just one thing, when he spoke about the remitter bank, why is it, do anybody have an idea, why is it an important step with UPI Lite when it doesn't go to the remitter bank leg? you just look at the volume, which he said. We spoke of the volumes, right? Which means every time an UPI transaction is done, it is hitting the bank server, right? And it is hitting the server of the remitter bank and the payee bank, right? Somewhere a debit has to happen, somewhere a credit has to happen. So every time, look at the volume of transactions which will be there on the server of the bank to keep on hitting that transaction with the bank, right? So beyond at a particular threshold, it's not that it's not hitting, but for every transaction it doesn't happen. That's in simple terms, that is what it happens. So you're not hitting on every single transaction.
Correct. Just one point here I would like to add. So for the practical experience, so whenever you scan any QR code and you enter the amount and then you enter the MPIN, that's the time when server is hitting the remitter bank for your MPIN verification, and once it is successful, then a debit request is created from remitter and credited to beneficiary bank. So that's why this remitter lag is very much important, which was minimized in and which was removed in UPI Lite. Okay, so Vishal will take that further. Okay, but from the practical experience, this lag was removed using the UPI Lite, and Vishal will explain to you how that has been done.
All right. Also, point to note here is that you have top 50 banks which have a very good, availability rate. I mean, they go down, but not seldom. But here it's a problem with the long tail, right? There are like close to more than 200 banks supporting UPI payments, or even more, and some of these banks may not be able to scale as fast as UPI is scaling. So that's where in UPI Lite helps, to reduce the load on those banks. So moving on. Anything you want to add?
Next slide. Okay, so on this, before Vishal comes into the picture, so I will talk about why UPI Lite is required. So, that comes to the vision of NPCI. So there are major two visions of NPCI: to allow or to empower the UPI platform with 1 billion transactions per day. As of now, we are having around 1/3 of what is expected or what is the target is. So around 10 billion transactions on monthly basis. Idea is to have 30 billion of transactions on monthly basis. Okay, so understanding that this much of load or traffic is going to overload the servers of banks, as Vishwanath explained. Second thing, it's about allowing the banks to scale the ecosystem. With such a load, banks can't go with the scales of the ecosystem, provide the better experience to the customers. So this UPI Lite come into the picture. So what has been done, a wallet has been created in your device. So what happens normally when you see the flow, you have an UPI app, you give the consent for UPI Lite. Okay, that times Issuer Bank create a wallet as an escrow in your phone. Okay, now the leg of remitter is removed. So now the transaction happens between your phone and NPCI. That's why when you scan a QR code, you enter the amount, no need to enter the PIN. Okay, so overall, it is streamlining the process, making it faster, and which is also aligning with the strategy and vision of the NPCI. Additionally, this has been implemented in such a way that internet connectivity is not required every time. So no internet or intermittent internet connection can be done. That means you have 24/7, 365 connectivity with UPI Lite, anytime, anywhere. Okay, your transaction will not be disqualified because of functional reasons or business reasons. Okay, because amount will be verified when you write the amount, and OTP, this one, MPIN will not be there. So that means that verification will not be happening.
Correct. And no MPIN means means less business declines also. Go ahead. All right, so that's about the context setting. Now we have few questions which each of us will try to address.
Sure. About the benefits of UPI Lite, very first thing, it make the transaction very fast. You know, when you scan a QR code, you just enter the amount and press submit button. That's it. Transaction is done. You get the success notification. Merchant also gets a success notification. From the bank side, it easily load on bank because no MPIN is there and it is not hitting the bank server. So banks are also happy for this. Second, you know, it comes up with the more and better user experience. You know, now the number of clicks has reduced. No hopping between apps. Whenever you scan any app for this OTP or MPIN, you might go to bank screen. That will not be happening in this case. Third thing, which is an important one, is about the security. Whenever you scan QR code, you enter MPIN and you just hide the screen so that other people could not see it. Now you don't have to enter MPIN, you don't have to hide it. It's secure for you guys. Nobody will see it. And next thing is about the accessibility. It's anytime, anywhere, 24/7. Whenever you go, you are driving, or you are buying something for you. Normal day-to-day transactions, small value transactions, you can do it in seconds. Okay, so this kind of message, like your bank server is not responding, you will never get it in this scenario. Okay, and the last thing which I feel is important is about your passbooks and accounts. It will not make it clutter. It is very simple. When you load the wallet, that transaction will remain with your bank. Otherwise, for this minimal transactions, small transaction which you do from UPI Lite, it will not hit your bank. Okay, so this will not be visible in your UPI, your bank statements. So overall, very good experience to the consumers, as well as very good experience for the banks and aggregators also.
I just want to ask if anybody can answer this. What is the role of government with respect to people? One of the biggest and responsibilities of the government, which we did in this country, was a program which we ran, which the government of India ran beautifully and executed it very well 3-4 years back. Would you remember what was it? Yeah, after that? No, yes, GST, fine. Who was this? Please stand up. Jandan, yeah. What's your name? Patel. Yeah, thank you. It was Jandan, right? What is Jandan? You opened bank accounts for almost everybody in the country. Okay? Now, one thing is to open bank accounts for everybody in the country. The second thing is to provide the services which banks have to provide, right? And one of that is people move money, right? And that movement of money should be easy. It should cut across value. Because if you're trying to get a country which is called financial inclusion, which means you get everybody into the banking system, because that helps in a lot of other ways, okay? The first thing is you include everybody. That is financial inclusion. So while you say Jandan, you opened accounts so that banks became accessible and available for everybody. UPI, on the payment side, which is what is done, made payments and transfers accessible for anybody and everybody, and the UPI Lite is now saying below 2,000, but while making some things accessible, you also have the problems. You have to manage the problems. And the management of the problem is the UPI Lite, because otherwise you will have server costs going up, bank transaction going up, banks maintaining so much of details for every transaction. That's the UPI Lite. Okay.
Move on. Yes. So next, what is the benefit of UPI Lite for users, which can be both merchants as well as payers? I think Sudhanshu already touched base on that, that for users it's better management. You know, your bank account statements is less cluttered. You don't have to enter the UPI pin, so you don't have to hide it in a crowded place, UPI pin. It's a tap and pay kind of experience, going forward. Right now, no, but going forward. Then you can pay it in when there's a flaky internet connection or no internet connection, so those things.
Yeah, couple of points I would like to add. For the customer, I have already taken up the points. One point I would like to highlight about the dispute. Many times it happens, like you scan QR code, you pay the amount get deducted from your account, but merchant says, no, I have not received the amount. So this happens a lot. Okay, that's because there are many reasons for it. Technical reasons, functional reasons, many reasons. Or the server of the bank is not available because of choke and all. So that will not come in your life. Okay. If I talk about the merchants, which we are catering to, so merchant has two advantages, which is very much clear. First thing, it will enable more and more transaction for the merchants, because now it is easy for the customer to use UPI without the PIN, and transaction is fast. Okay, so instead, sometime I have 20 rupee, I will think about giving the cash of 20 rupee, I will not do it because it's just simple scan and press. That's the only thing, only two actions. Second thing about the merchant is again dispute. This scenario also affect the merchants also. If you as a user raise a dispute to bank that, hey, I have not done this transaction, or I have done it, but I have paid by cash also. Okay, dispute, it's a cost for bank as well as the merchant too. That will be avoided in this case. So merchant will also be happy and ready with the implementation of the UPI Lite at the consumer side. So from the merchant side, merchant don't have to do any extra implementation on this case. Okay, because their already systems are compatible with UPI, that means with UPI Lite. Only customers like you and me will have to activate the UPI Lite with one action only. For the bank,
yeah, I'll just take. Okay. What do banks do? You're looking at a banker and saying you don't do anything. Please don't say that. Okay? Other than that, what do banks do? What is the main role of banks? To lend money, right? And where do banks usually lend? How do banks lend? Just tell me. If somebody who's sleeping, if you can get up, you can tell me how bank. You only straight. I know you were thinking, but it is fine. How do banks lend? On what basis do banks lend? On? So you look at some document, right? If you want a loan from a bank, they look at some document. And what do they look at in a document? They look at what are banks trying to do? Whenever you lend, the only thing banks is trying to do when it lends to somebody is only one thing. Do you have that much amount of money to pay the loan? Right? Do you have that much money to pay the loan? Correct? I'm not looking at anything else. Do you have that much money to pay that loan? Like if I give you 100 rupees of loan, in 10 months if you have to pay, you have to have 10 rupees every month. And what do? I look at your bank statement to say, okay, you're keeping a balance of 20 rupees every month, so it is likely you will pay me 10 rupees. I'm making it simple for you all, okay? So you can pay 10 rupees. So what does this do? What does this do? UPI Lite is for people who are transferring and receiving below a certain sum, let's say 2,000 rupees or whatever, that is the sum, right?
500.
And when you look at banks or institutions which lend, typically this segment of customers, who are the small customers or the merchants, don't get through a formal because they don't maintain. India is still a cash economy, right? We still deal a lot with cash. So first UPI Lite removes the cash portion from our overall ecosystem. Cash is removed. And when you are having the trail of transactions of what debit you do and what credit you do, it lets me a method of analyzing. If I know that so many debits are happening in the month, that means you can pay so much and keep this much amount of balance. So if somebody, let's say, is receiving tons of monies of below 2,000 rupees, and this which he's receiving in a month through UPI Lite, I will be able to get a trail of what transactions he's doing to say that this is the kind of money that we can lend to the customer. Okay? Which is why there is a circular of RBI in September 2023, that is last month, which says credit to be given for UPI Lite transactions, customer. People who use this, how do banks put out a policy to give loans to this segment of customers? That's how they promote, and that's how the future would also be in terms of using this as a means for saying, how do we give credit? Okay?
A question may come that how is it different from any wallet, right? I mean, if you see the wallet transactions, there is no NPCI, there is no bank. Let's say you use Paytm wallet, it's between you and you using a Paytm app. A merchant is on Paytm, so it's only Paytm ecosystem which is effective. Yeah. Same case for other wallets. So how is UPI Lite different from wallet? So the point to note here is that wallet is not everywhere, right? Merchant has to explicitly ask for wallet, ask the wallet provider to be enabled. So basically, merchant has to send a request to its payment processing to enable a particular wallet. And then it's not free in most of the cases, you know. But UPI is everywhere, it's free. So someone who is supporting a UPI payment, a merchant who's getting a UPI payment, doesn't have to do anything extra to move to UPI Lite. So it's basically, it's covering a much bigger market, and it's free.
You know the success of UPI? From ideation to execution, one, it has been among the fastest. Two, the UPI system that we use in this country today, there are countries like Singapore, UAE, which wants to implement and adopt this kind of system, a payment system for enabling payments across. It's one of the innovative launch by the government, supported by the RBI, because there's a lot of investment which RBI did to promote this. And across segments, okay, if you look at healthcare, if you look at MFIs, if you look at collections which banks do for loan repayments, this has come like a blessing, right? Where customers need not pay the full EMI. If the EMI is, let's say, 5,000 rupees a month, instead of, otherwise you have to send a collector 10 times to collect 500 rupees, now you get that the customer is able to make UPI payments through the handle of 500, 400, whatever be the sum, so that he reaches that amount, okay? And since there is a lot of investments and it is no charge, right? Absolutely, it is free now, as of now. So that payments, the collections has become a big help because of UPI for banks and financial institutions.
All right, we wanted to touch base on the offline payment pass also, which is called UPI LEADXAI, and it is, I think, recently launched one or two months before. And not many payments app are supporting it as of now, but in next couple of months, you know, most of them will be supporting, wherein the payer and the receiver both need not be connected to the internet. So what will happen is, you know, the technology called NFC, near field communication. That's how the UPI Lite wallet of the payer will connect with the UPI Lite wallet of the receiver, and the transaction will happen. The transaction amount would be same, like 500 rupees per transaction, max of 2,000. But yes, so that's something, and it is targeted for, you know, places where there is no internet, less internet, or in basements. We all have felt, right, that, you know, UPI payment is not going through because your phone is not connected to the internet. So what we see is, using UPI Lite, you will be just moving your phone to a, let's say, a QR code on a standee, and, you know, the payment will be deducted from your wallet, UPI Lite wallet, and transferred to the merchant's UPI Lite. That's a bit future, maybe a few months away, but that's how it will be. A very interesting technology, very interesting move. We have to see how it comes out.
It's also, just to add, it's also because all of you in this room use smartphones, right? And the latest versions. Okay, maybe somebody has iPhone 17 also, I don't know. You might be buying it in advance. That's how people are in this room. But if you look at India, India is not that. India is much different from this room and this crowd who's talking here. India lives in its villages, it lives in its tier 4, tier 5 cities. That's where it is. And there, it is feature phones. It's not smartphones, right? This is a technology, this feature works well for the feature phones as well. Okay, because we can't think of this audience for this. So this is a payment gateway for that.
So, it extends the simplicity like anything, I tell you. So, you might be using your card for less than 5,000 transaction. You just need to tap your card on POS device. Transaction happens. In flight also, you can do the same. So, using the same technology, where you want to send the money to your friend, just you need to touch both phones, your friend and your phone, set the amount and touch it. So, transaction would happen. So, more on the detail would be coming in the future. So as it is again in development phase, but some specification has come from NPCI. So maybe in a couple of months you will see that feature coming up with different PSP apps which you guys are using.
All right, so this is our final slide, which is UPI Lite a game changer? Maybe Sudhanshu, you can start.
Okay. So I definitely feel that this is a game changer. If I just take a step back. If I see UPI is the growth vector of Indian financial ecosystem or Indian fintech ecosystem. And as JK explained, so you should feel proud that this is the space, payments is the space where we are leading in the world, and we are leading from the Western world who were developing the payment initially. Okay, the quality comes up because of the maturity, scalability in our current payment rails, which are there with us, and that NPCI is also talking with G20 nations, around 20 plus nations, are also planning to implement the same in their payment ecosystem, also integrate with their real-time payments, whatever they have in their country. So the growth, and the maturity we have shown, in the fintech world, is definitely a game changer in that sense. Additionally, with the implementation of UPI Lite, it has made the transaction very easy, very simple. It's I would say better than or easier than giving the cash, because what I see with all the advantages of UPI Lite. Also, the use cases is going to touch in your day-to-day life. Let's get me into detail of it. Very first one is about micropayments. Nowadays, I know that I'm talking with Gen Z, generation who is very much tech savvy. So, you might be using a lot of social media. So, where you might be doing a micropayments also using Insta, YouTube. It makes it very easy for you guys to do this kind of micropayments. When you do any online UPI payment, so there is a hop happens from one website to the PSP. That will be eliminated overall. So this has been minimized. Now it is also with some plugins, but UPI Lite removes that totally. Add a lot of convenience to you. And if I see our day-to-day life, when we are traveling, we are on rush. When we are walking, we are on rush. When we buy anything from grocery, we are on rush. So this is a solution, where in our busy lifetime, we can do the payments and move ahead. This will also help you to make, to provide tips on your daily basis. Your cab wala, driver wala, auto wala, a Zomato guy who come and give deliveries to you. Okay, and you will feel secure at the end because you have just, does the transaction without your PIN. So overall, it is going to touch each and every step of your life and going to ease the payment in the doing right now, and in the future also it is going to ease it. And that couple of data I would like to share here. So as of now, it got launched in I think last year in September, October. As of now, 2 to 3% of UPI transaction. So the transaction in UPI Lite is equal to around 2 to 3% of entire UPI transactions. Okay, and the government has a vision to make it to 20% by 2025 of the UPI transactions. Onboarding 500 million people in UPI Lite by 2027. Okay, and what trends we have seen, as we have already seen this app, and Paytm is also have this app integrated. So what we have seen, people have started using a lot. So more than 100 million transactions coming on daily basis. Okay, no, it's a monthly basis, my bad. Okay, and the uses has peak during the peak hours, lunchtime, dinner time, peak is going on, and the categories, merchant categories where the transaction happening is again touching our day-to-day, food and beverages, local stores, retail, and travel. So again, if I see that these are the areas which we do on daily basis, and while doing these activities, we are always on rush. So this is the solution for our rush.
Yeah. Okay. Just one thing, from a banking perspective, okay, somebody spoke demonetization, right? Why did that happen? Do anybody of you know the amount of cash which was in the economy? And you can take a guess. How much do you think is the cash in the Indian economy? Cash transaction, which is moving about. You must have read M1, M2, M3 types of money, right? Have you reached there or not yet? Okay, otherwise if you have not learned, it will come during your third year. Do you know the amount of cash which was in the economy? Can you take a guess? Anybody can take a guess? Yeah, please. No, $1 billion in lakh crores. Okay, okay. How much? 15 lakh crores. Who was that? Who said that? Yeah. When demonetization, he's a professor, that's why. Okay, okay. When demonetization happened, we had 15.6 lakh crores of cash in the economy. Okay, that is cash moving around between you, me, everybody, merchant, everywhere in the system. The cash was 15.6 lakh crores. Okay? Demonetization happened 4 years back, right? Correct? Do you know what is the cash today in the system? Indian system? Take a guess. Yeah, it is touching 20 lakh crores. Okay? Just imagine if that didn't happen, what would be the cash in the system? Okay. Now, why? It is a means of transaction. It is a currency, right? Cash is a currency. You trade. It improves the GDP, everything. But there are a lot of ill effects of cash, right? What UPI Lite will lead is what are all the banks globally, including the Reserve Bank of India, talking about in terms of currency? People are moving to something which is called a central bank
CBDC.
Digital currency, correct? Right? It's a central bank digital currency, which means currency is held in digital form, e-rupee. And if you have to transact in e-rupee, things like this. That's why this are the forerunners to a game changer, because you are changing not only the means, but also a social way of how you deal with transactions. Okay? Like you would see in your house, you are comfortable dealing with digital. Your maid still wants her salary in cash. Right? You tell her digital, she'll say, nahi, kya kar rahe ho? Cash mere do. But this is means. But if you see the transactions, and UPI Lite is talking of transactions at 2,000 rupees and lower, because there you're dealing with a section and transaction. It's not that we don't do transactions of 2,000 rupees or lower, but to facilitate transaction to that segment of society, especially with such a large telecom and internet penetration that we have in this country, That's why this will become a game changer in payments.
Also, just one point, because for this transaction, internet is not required. So maybe in, if you see in future in tier 2, tier 3 and rural areas of India, urban and rural areas of India, where internet infrastructure might not be that much good, where UPI transaction could not be fulfilled because of internet connectivity or intermittent disconnectivity of internet, this can go there, okay, and allow people to make their digital transactions.
All right. So my final 2 words. I think as of today, UPI Lite is very, very useful feature, and but it has a lot of potential, like JK mentioned already. So yeah. So that's all, folks, for today. I think we are open for questions.
So, obviously, UPI Lite is a great thing, but there are a few negative connotations to that as well. That may mean like kids around the age of 13 to 17, they might use UPI and overspend, like because of the ease of the transactions. In like 2 clicks, you can spend like 30 rupees. So, what do you think about that?
Okay, your question is that it is a great thing, but if you overspend.
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, you can
So that's-
suggest us, guide us on this.
No, it is good for banks because we can give more loans, but hopefully you'll spend. But taking that away, see any solution that you provide, okay? Like today, credit cards, I'm just stepping back, are available for everybody, right? When they come into earlier, when in our days it used to be for people who are 30 plus. Today it is for people as much as 18, and now today you have young kids credit cards also going. Okay? There are tools available to you. Right? It doesn't mean that everybody starts overspending because of this. This is a feature which will be there. But just like in shopping malls, when you go to shopping mall, you actually don't go to buy, but you end up buying. Why? Because you see it, right? You see it, it just appeals to you something and you end up buying something else than what you actually wanted. So this, to an extent, yeah, maybe that they will spend because it is ease of this thing. But today, like the ease, you also have loans which are available on tap, right? But it doesn't mean that, but loans continue to grow. If you see Indian loan growth story, earlier if you had to get a consumer durable loan, you had to wait 1 or 2 days to get the loan. Today you get it in 1 or 2 minutes. Like with Bajaj Finance, they give you instantly there. But the loan growth, credit growth will always taper at around that same level. That is what will happen. So we don't think that it will end up with more loans, but it provides an option for us to give loans because you're tracking, like I said, the credit history of the customer. It might result in a behavior which makes him spend a little bit more than what is required, but ultimately he will realize that he's spending his own money and he's not on loans. So that's the good part. Even if he's spending that money, he's spending that money which is available in his wallet, unless he takes the loan, which is the next step in UPI.
So on the same line, definitely instant gratification for that you will spend because it is easy to spend, but it is coming from your balance only, your saving account only, from your debit card only. What trend we have seen, because I have platform where we provide EMI, BNPL also, so going with BNPL. So in BNPL scenarios where we give lending, so there people not generally overspend, mainly with Gen Z and millennial, we overspend there, okay. But when amount is getting deducted from your account and you see the balance real time, so normally this tendency does not occur a lot.
That's why you see debit card spends are lower always than credit card spends. It's similar to that, right? It's using your bank account.
Yes, also you can spend only amount which is available in the wallet. I think that is already said. And you can add only twice in a day. So maximum is 2,000 plus 2,000, 4,000 is what you can spend using UPI Lite in a day, as of now.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Subhag, and the question I wanted to ask is, with the rise of UPI, several billion-dollar companies have come up, such as PhonePe, PhonePe, Paytm, etc. My question is, with the rise of UPI Lite and where offline payments are going to be a thing, what other billion-dollar companies or opportunities would come up? And if there are in the offline payment space, what would be the main value point with the new customer base? Would it be safety or would it be the ease of payments?
Okay. Okay. So if I see the growth of Indian payment ecosystem or fintech ecosystem, ease of payment is definitely one of the driver. Okay. And as you have seen, the UPI is driver for many of the billion-dollar companies. Now in the future, every company is on UPI. They are taking UPI as their growth driver. But other options, one of the option as he highlighted, CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, which has been launched in India, that is going to digitize entire ecosystem. Okay, so this is the product where fintechs are focusing as of now. Second thing is about the, I would say cross-border payments. So currently, just from data, so around 100 billion of transactions happen in cross-border payment where incoming cross-border payments happens with 100 billions of transactions. And the average cost is around 6% per transaction. Okay. Now, Government of India, RBI, NPCI wanted to reduce that to less than 3%. Again, using CBDC and blockchain. This is again one of the very big use case. Okay. They want to digitize the entire ecosystem where, say, suppose I am in India, I want to send money to somebody in UK, it will be normal like UPI payment. Okay, I can do that. Okay. So CBDC, government is pushing like anything. Third thing, in the offline space, I see, or not on the offline space, but overall the experience is about the neo-banking. Customers and merchants, B2B and B2C, both are not, very much happy with the experience given by the bank because bank have their own challenges. Okay. That's why the growth of neo-bank has come into the picture. Many neo-banks like Jupiter, Fires or somebody, I forgot the name. They are very common or famous with the Gen Z and again millennials because they help them to aggregate their all accounts at a single place where you can have all kind of financial products. You can opt for card, real time. You can get the online real time account created. You can buy any insurance real time from the same login. Okay. Nowadays, or in the past, suppose I want to get insurance, I will have to go to Policy Bazaar, check about the details, then I can go further for the document. Again, for the car, insurance, I will have to go to somebody. Now, all these services, whatever I am doing in my day-to-day operation, plus weekly operations, monthly operations, or annual operations, that has been combined in a single application, which provide a better user experience to me as a user or to B2B merchants as a merchant. And it provide a comprehensive suite of product for the customers and merchant. Sorry.
Yeah, so those are the next steps for fintech, right?
Definitely.
Coming back to the question of UPI Lite, I think UPI Lite is an extension of UPI. So you won't have a company which is very good in UPI Lite but not doing UPI. That's not possible at all. So it will be, although the offline payment segment is interesting, but still it's the main product will be UPI only. So what Sudhanshu mentioned is more on what next you will be seeing in fintech.
The other way, the thing that you were asking, okay, when you bank with a bank, okay, obviously you will bank with a bank, what is that you're looking at? Why do you go to a bank? What is that you look at when you're banking? What is the one thing? If I have to ask you, why do you bank? What is that? Why do you bank? For safety, right? That means banking, okay, it's correct, safety, is all about trust. There is no other place where you will put your money and feel secure about it. Even to your friend, if he's your friend, you will not feel safe giving money to him and thinking that my money is safe. But when you go to a bank, you will feel safe. And you asked what about the ecosystem when we talk about digital product. Digital is a process, okay? If you see India, okay, and I'm carrying forward this discussion from the earlier discussion, why some other bank failed somewhere and that why will that not happen in India was a question which was asked. If you see India, you have a central bank like RBI, which is probably one of the best regulated central banks which monitors and regulates the banking industry across India. Okay. We have rules for every single thing that we do in the bank. The RBI circulars are so detailed that even for UPI Lite there is a circular. For doing a transaction there is a circular. It is well regulated and controlled. Now as we move into digitalization, right, the whole ecosystem will adopt itself to this newer means of banking. You can call it neo-banking, conglomerate of products, selecting all the products at a single place. But overarching thing to all this will be the trust. That's how the banking ecosystem will work.
So that's why even with the neo banking, they use the logo of the bank to say that, hey, you are going to have your account with Federal Bank because you trust the Federal Bank. You don't trust a fintech or a neo bank. That's
The transaction history will be maintained on the device. No. See, what happens is, when you are doing the transaction, like for the payer bank, in case of UPI, the request, while you are doing the transaction, the request will go to the payer bank to see whether the amount is there, enough amount is there for the transaction. And on success of that request, actually the transaction happens. Then the request will go to the payee bank, basically the receiver bank. And there also, whether the receiver account is active, whether he can receive the money. Okay. So these two things, when you enter the PIN, right, in the UPI transaction. So these are the things which happens in the back end. So now and typically in India, you see the evening times are very busy. Most of the UPI transactions are happening in the evening from 6:30 to 8:30. So at that time, if your bank server is down, or if it is not able to scale to the load which is typically during festival seasons or during IPL matches, India's matches, the number of transactions increases exponentially. So at those times, your bank servers should also scale. A lot of banks, even top 50 banks generally manage it, mostly, I would say. But the long tail, that's where the difficulty is, that they are not able to scale it based on the changing traffic pattern. That's where the UPI Lite comes into picture. That as far as the transaction history is concerned, it is maintained on the device. The one.
See, just to tell you simply, okay, you look at a transaction, the same thing what Vishal is saying, I'm just explaining with an example. You are transferring 100 rupees from your account to somebody's account, say to my account. Okay, will you transfer? Okay, so assume you are transferring 100 rupees. So the transaction, the way it happens is, if your bank, let's say is DCB Bank, and my bank is ICICI Bank, your transaction will first go saying confirmation to NPCI saying, are you holding a DCB Bank account? So it goes there. From there, whether this person, JK Vishwanath, that's why there is a handle which is there, JK Vishi at UPI, at ICICI Bank, that will be the UPI handle, right? It will check whether this account is active. When you say whether this account is there or not, my account might be there but might be a dormant account because I have not updated whatever reason. So is the account live and running? It checks that, again the message goes to NPCI, again it goes back and then confirms, then the debit happens in your bank account, then the credit happens in my bank account. But all that happens instantly. What you see on the phone, on your devices, debit, and instantly you get a message, yeah, credited into that account. That's the power which UPI has brought out. Now when you say it's not that you're transferring the banks cannot transfer anything to anybody, correct? They keep everything to themselves, including the transaction history. But it's just a means in which it doesn't hit the server. But otherwise, just at this kind of hit in a server, look at the capacities banks will have to build infrastructure of servers. It will be humongous, right? So that's why this kind of a methodology.
So I'd like to take an example. In the year 2019, there's a company called Discord. Discord had a major breakthrough because of its payment systems. So it had accounts, and the accounts had tokens. So I believe that UPI also use something called as a token because the servers, they run on tokens, right? So in offline payments, as we are speaking, there would be no token exchange unless and until there is a network or an internet connection. So my question would be more on the ethical use of it. So if someone could replicate or could get into the app structure of UPI Lite as we speak, so they could easily increase or decrease the amount of that particular request that you put through. How is the structure handling this problem? Would be handling this problem?
All right. So the way UPI Lite is implemented is from NPCI, they give a client library. Okay. Also and since you mentioned about the offline payments, so basically all the apps, Paytm, PhonePe, or any other app, they will be using that client library to do to enable the UPI Lite offline payment. Even for the online payment also, the same concept is there. So now what happens is, in the NFC technology, right, when two phones will come in close proximity to each other, and then the transaction will happen. This is very much well tested, used across the world, not in apps, but not in UPI, because UPI is very much India centric right now, but other places. So when the communication happens, it is encrypted, and it's a bit more technical there, wherein the way that it is encrypted, the same encryption logic is not used. The algorithm is same, but the salt changes every time. So so it's very difficult to hack, and it's not. So it's very safe. You can connect with me offline. I'll try to explain a bit in detail.
On the functional side, just a bit I would like to add. So whenever any aggregator creates any feature, say UPI Lite in this case, so NPCI provide a client ID and need a certification to be done with the aggregator. So that means they check the entire flow, data messaging part, everything they check. Without doing that, you cannot be taken live with NPCI. So certification process allows not everybody or every aggregator to develop that application and connect with the UPI.
Yes. Discord, anybody can get into Discord. In Discord, which you were saying, anybody can get into Discord, right? Here there is a certification process which happens on the aggregator side.
So, hello. Hello.
So, can I have a round of applause for the gentleman here? Yeah. I would like to invite Professor Madhu on the stage to felicitate the speakers. I would request Professor Madhu and Professor Adit to be on the stage, and I could request the speakers to please take their respective seats. So with this, we come to the end of the entire panel discussions. I would again like to say sorry, and we will like to now finish with the vote of thanks, and then we will give you the tea, right? I know I'm not going to be in the good books of the entire student fraternity here. I've been keeping you, hijacked in this particular room. So we have our partners here, and I would like to have Stephen and Professor Sabu on stage for the felicitation. Thank you. So we have had tireless meetings with them for past 2 months on this, right? They have been equally involved. So. Thank you. Can I ask the dignitaries to please take the seats? All right. Before we proceed to the vote of thanks, I have a small recap video, just 1 minute video that our students actually made for the entire 2 days event. Can I have that played on the big screen now? Thank you. Can I have a round of applause for all of us here? So it has been a marathon of lot of industry people talking to us, sharing their views. I'm thankful to all. Can I have Professor Surya here? I was just about to begin the vote of thanks. I don't want to take his podium. Sir, please, on this. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to propose the vote of thanks. We have had 2 days of AI learning, the most exciting development that is changing business and society. We have listened to 35 plus delegates and senior leaders from MAHE, TAPME, and Southampton Business School. Many people have contributed to making this exciting event, and we are very happy that almost everything worked like magic. At the outset, I would like to thank all the speakers for taking time out and coming from across the country and across the globe to share their knowledge. I would like to thank the leaders and faculty of University of Southampton for their partnership and contribution to designing and delivering of the event. I would like to thank all the delegates and the HR Masterclass participants for their passion and effort. Thanks to leaders from MAHE Group, faculty from all the group institutions, TAPME Manipal and TAPME Bengaluru. Institutions of eminence are not just built with stones, cement, and steel. It is built based on the vision of dynamic leaders. In this context, I would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Ramdas Pai, Chancellor, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Dr. Ranjan Pai, Chairman, Manipal Academy and Medical Group, and all MAHE Trust and Governing Council members for their guidance and support, which has enabled all of us to make TAPME one of the finest B schools in India. Our sincere gratitude to Lieutenant General Dr. M.D. Venkatesh, Vice Chancellor, MAHE, for his support. We sincerely thank our Pro-Chancellor, MAHE Bengaluru, Professor Madhu Veeraraghavan, for supporting and guiding us at every stage. We are thankful to the Deputy Registrar of MAHE Bengaluru, Dr. Raghavendra Prabhu, for all his help and support in the conduct of this event. Our special thanks to the Deputy Director General Services, Mr. Basavaraj, for helping in arranging and organizing the event. Thanks to the IT team and the leadership of Mr. Prashant for getting this auditorium ready and for the IT infrastructure. We thank the TAPMI Manipal administration led by Director in Charge, Dr. Durga Prasad and his team for their continuous and untiring support to TAPMI Bangalore. A special word of thanks to Mr. Johnson for managing everything with his usual quiet and impeccable efficiency. I would like to thank all the faculty and staff colleagues at TAPMI Bangalore for taking up and delivering critical responsibility with finesse. Mr. Aditya played the leadership role and managed the moving parts with his customary felicity. A special word of thanks to Professor Padmavati for being the MC of the program. Abhishek took up the leadership role for putting together the event and deserves commendation for an outstanding execution. A special word of thanks to all the volunteers for their enthusiasm and painstaking efforts. Thank you, everyone. Jai Hind.
Can I request all to stand up for the national anthem? Thank you. Thank you. You can now have your high tea. There's an announcement Adit sir wanted to make. Maybe it is in our favor. I don't know.
Yeah. There was a volunteer called Parvati. Where is she? Parvati, next time the Pro-VC is not going to help you out. So tomorrow is a holiday for all of you.
Thank you, sir.